Now, in most of the cases, you won't have to put the datas in this format, like specifically giving the x-axis values and y-axis values. This is a hard job. In real-time scenarios, you will be analyzing data using the Excel file or the CSV format. So as I told you, we'll be using the Stack Overflow Annual Developer Survey data, and that data, as you can see, is here to download in full CSV format. So you can download this as CSV, and I have already downloaded it and cleaned up the data a little bit, and that file will look something like this. I have renamed it as GitHub survey right now. So it will have a lot of rows and columns. So I have cleaned it up a bit, and I have used only 2 columns for now. So we will have the responder ID and the languages they have worked with. So the responder ID, as you can see here, is separated by a comma, and the languages are separated by a semicolon. So responder ID goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it just goes on. And you can see here the languages worked with are the different languages they have worked with, and they are separated by a semicolon. Now I wanted to show you something really interesting. Actually, this data looks really weird. You cannot go through so many lines right now. So you just have to go to your VS Code extension market and type here Excel. And the first thing you see here is known as the Excel viewer. So what this does is it gives a extra graphical interface to your Excel data or the CSV file you're gonna open later. So let me just show you after installing this what happens. You again click the file you have. For my case, it's GitHub survey.csv, and there you get an option known as open preview, or you can use the shortcut Ctrl+Shift+V. Now when I click this, it will just convert it like the regular Excel, the MS Excel file you open. So as you can see here, much better, a responded ID and the languages they have worked with arranged properly. Okay, so to work with the CSV file, first you have to do is import the CSV module, and then you have to use another module known as Pandas. Now if you're not familiar with Pandas, in data science, Panda is the most important module. It will contain your data sets, which will further help you to filter out the data and again visualize it properly. So to install Pandas, again you have to visit terminal here and use the pip command. So pip install Pandas, and it is going to show me requirement satisfied because I have already installed it. If you have not installed Pandas, do that first and then you can import it. So again, I'm going to import Pandas as PD. I also need import NumPy as NP. What else do we need? We also need the Matplotlib. So import Matplotlib pyplot as PLT. Then we also need something known as a counter, because we have so many data sets right now. We need a counter to filter out the data, and in this case we will be filtering out the number of languages. As you know, the number of languages in the CSV file has over 50 languages. I thought let's just take top 15 languages, and it will look nice on our bar plot. So let me just show you how this counter works. You can open CMD. So once you have opened the CMD, I can show you how does the Python counter works. It is basically to count the number of elements in a list. So you can use a module known as collections. So from collections, import counter. Now the counter has to start with capital C. Make sure you do that. And once you have imported the counter, I can give you a small example by giving C equals, or let me give some variable like item. Yeah, item equals counter. Now inside counter, I want to pass a list. Now inside list, I can give some variables like Python. Let me give the languages like JavaScript. Let me give another language, C++. Now this is my list. Now what will happen is when I click enter, this list goes inside the counter, and that counter is assigned to variable item. Now when I pass the item, as you can see here, it is going to show me the list has Python 1, JavaScript 1, and C++1. So it counts the elements inside the list and gives you the count. So let me just edit this and show you again. If I change this counter and pass Python one more time, so I'm going to pass Python again here, sorry, with capital P. Yeah, Python one more time, and then click the item again. Now you can see here the counter shows the Python as 2, JavaScript 1, and C++1. So it will increment the number of elements added in the list, and it will go on. So it's a very useful tool. I'm going to use the same thing here. So from collections, import counter, and C is capital here. Okay, so again same, we'll be using a plot style. So plt dot style dot use, and inside this let's give Seaborn. That's fine. And now our main program starts. Okay, so as you know, we are going to use pandas for this, because panda is really powerful for this operation. It is the best way, I would say the faster way to clean up your data. Now as you can see, panda data frame is a two-dimensional data structure. The data is aligned in a tabular fashion, and if I click the preview menu, you can see this is a tabular fashion of organizing data. So panda has a lot of potential in this case, so we'll be using panda, and in future videos we'll be using panda to clean up the data. And if you're doing any projects, I would suggest go with panda instead of using that old open method using the CSV read method built into Python. Data frame, let me assign a variable, let me call it main data. Okay, so this will be our main data variable, and using the in panda you have a method known as the read CSV method. So panda read CSV, and inside this read CSV parameter I can pass my file name. In this case it is GitHub. It's GitHub survey.csv. Now let me assign two more variables to separate this data. As you can see here, we have the responder ID and the languages worked with. Let me just change this here in my program. So I can give something like people equals the main data. Inside main data, inside the square bracket, my data frame name is responder ID. So R capital responder ID, you can see here as well. This is the name here. Yeah, it's responder ID with R capital, and languages worked with. Let me just copy this, and let me name this as lang used. So languages used, again I'm taking the data frame, the main data, and inside this I'm going to pass languages worked with. As simple as that. Great. Now we are going to use the counter. So let me give something like language counter. So lang counter, and this counter will have the counter from the collection. So this is the counter function running here. Now let me run a for loop, very simple. For x in lang counter, and inside this I want to update it. So lang counter dot update. Now what this update will do, it will split wherever the language are there. So I have showed people have responded to multiple languages like this, so it is going to split according to this semicolon. And if if you have any other symbol here, you can assign that here. Okay, so it will be update, and inside this we are using the x variable as the iterator. So x dot split, and inside split it will be the semicolon. Simple. Now that you're done with the language counter and you have updated using the split method, we can create two separate lists to hold that value. Now let me create something like language as my first list, and let me create the popularity. Now my popularity will be another list. Okay, so again we are going to run a for loop. So for the item in lang counter, so as you can see here, this is our counter. So this will hold the top 15. So as you can see, I am getting the first recommendation here, the most common. So this is the method I'm going to use to hold the top 15. Now inside this you can give the parameter in case you want top 20, and you can pass here 20, but I need 15 top languages, so I'm going to keep 15 here. And after that I just have to use language dot append. Now this is going to append the item to the list. Now in this case it is item, and the list value is 0 because the first column here is taken as 0 and the second is taken as 1. Simple. So this will be 0, and then again we need the popularity. So popularity dot append, and inside this I have to pass item 1. Easy. Okay, now if you want to see how this looks, I'm just going to print it to the terminal. So print language. Okay, so there's a small edit you need to make. I have used the lang used and then assigned the main data frame here. And for this for loop, I have given the lang counter by mistake. This should be lang used. Okay, so that was the change, and rest all remains the same. Now let me hit F5 and run this. Okay, so now after running the program, you can see here the counter working. Now you can see here the counts having the first list having the language and the second list will have the popularity. So you can see JavaScript, HTML5, SQL, Python, and the languages in the first list, and the popularity remains in the second list. So this is how the counter in Python works. So you don't need the print anymore. Let me just remove this, and we need the same labels and the titles, legends, everything back. Now it's time to plot the data. So you'll use plt.bar because you're using the bar plot. And as I told you, we are using two variables as x and y here. So this is nothing but our list. We'll just pass that here. So we'll have language on the x, and we'll have the popularity in y. So that is it. Now let me give some title. So plt.title, and title will be Stackoverflow data, and let's give some label to our x. So x label will be programming languages, plt.y label. Now y label will be the number of developers, and we are going to give the tight layout. So plt dot tight layout. Okay, and what else? We need the last thing, which is called plt dot show. Let me hit F5 and run this. Now the problem here is these x axes, these values are somewhere touching. Like you can see here, Java and Bash shell and PowerShell, C# all are touching each other. So this happens when we have a lot of data in your x-axis or a lot of variables to go through in x-axis. So best way to represent this would be in horizontal form. So to do that, there's a simple change here. Instead of using the plt.bar, you can rename it to bar h, which stands for bar horizontal. Now this is going to plot the same data in horizontal format, and it will look much better. And you can see here, this looks much better. Now you have the programming language, but you have to change your x and y label again. So let me change this. Now let me run this again. Now after changing that, you can see here, you have the y label as programming languages and the number of developers in the x. Looks very good, and this is how you can represent the data in horizontal and vertical bar plots. This plot you can see here, you can see the most popular language JavaScript is at the bottom. Just in case you want to reverse this order, it's very simple. You can go something like language again and use the reverse. Reverse. And same thing you can do for the popularity. Simple. Let me just run this again. And this is going to reverse the order. Now the most popular language will appear at the top. As simple as that. So JavaScript, HTML5, CSS. And if you look closely, this exact same data is available on the Stack Overflow website. So the most popular language is represented something like this, and this is the output we have got from that data. Alright, so that was a wrap for this video now, and I'll catch you in the next one.